Hello and welcome into another episode of Locked On Wolves. Today on the show, where do the Timberwolves rank in the Western Conference? What tier are they in as the offseason unfolds? Plus, we'll talk about 4 things to look out for in Las Vegas Summer League, part 1 of what to watch in Vegas. It's all upcoming next.
You are Locked On Timberwolves, your daily Minnesota Timberwolves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Wolves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Ben Beecken. I'm the host of Locked On Wolves. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Happy hump day. We're just one day away from Timberwolves Vegas action. We'll get to see TJ Shannon and Jaylen Clark and Rob Dillingham and the rookies, everybody in action. Well, not everybody, but all the young guys in action in Vegas on Thursday afternoon. We'll talk a bit more about that later in the show. I'll give you a few things to look for in game 1 of Vegas play for Minnesota. But I want to start with Western Conference tiers in light of an ESPN article that came out trying to tier out the West based on early free agency and some trades and some stuff that's happened here since the draft. So, or I guess since the end of the finals. A lot to get to today on the show. A big thank you off the top for making Locked On Wolves your first listen every single day. Of course, this show is free and available everywhere. That includes YouTube as well as all of your favorite audio platforms. Wherever you like to listen to podcasts, you can find Locked On Wolves. You can also watch on the Locked On Sports Minnesota app on both Roku and Amazon Fire TV. Of course, we are still daily throughout the month of July. So if you need your Wolves fix every single day, the right spot for you here as we kick off the offseason. All right. So where do the Timberwolves fit in the Western Conference? Of course, the Wolves go into the conference finals each of the last 2 years. Minnesota has not made any they certainly have not made any upgrades to the roster. No improvements to a roster that got them to the conference finals for a second consecutive year. The question is, did they tread water? Did they get a little bit worse? And what about the teams around them? Which I think is a worthwhile exercise. Of course, the offseason far from over, but a lot of the major movement has happened. There's still free agents to sign. The Wolves have 2 roster spots, as we talked about pretty extensively over the last week here on the show. At least one that they need to fill here at some point in what's left of the offseason. But the teams around them have done a lot more, or I should say, not a lot more. Well, in some cases, they have done a lot more. 2 years ago, Minnesota got to the conference finals as a 3 seed, of course, sweeping Phoenix in the first round, beating the defending champion Denver Nuggets in the second round in 7 games, and then falling to the Mavs 5 games in the conference finals. This year, Minnesota was the 6th seed, beat the 3 seed Lakers in 5 games. It's somewhat of a surprising conference finals, but like nobody was picking the Wolves to go to the conference finals. However, I guess getting past the Lakers was a what seemed to be a taller task. I actually picked the Lakers to win that series in 6. I was obviously dead wrong. I did pick the Wolves to beat the Warriors. That was pre-Steph Curry injury. I thought they'd beat the Warriors in 6. They beat the Warriors in 5. If you had said before the playoffs, hey, look, they get past the Lakers and then they face a Steph-less Warriors team, like, yeah, of course you'd pick them to beat a Steph-less Warriors team. But still a surprise that a 6 seed got to the conference finals. Now, the question coming into the offseason was Minnesota going to retain, extend, trade, sign and trade Naz Reid and or Julius Randle? They ended up keeping both of them. Naz Reid signed an extension. Actually, they both signed extensions and will both be in Timberwolves uniforms, very likely for at least the next couple of years. In Naz's case, longer than that. And it's unlikely that there's any substantial move for Minnesota still remaining this offseason. Of course, I said the same thing last year, and the Randle, Cat, Dante DiVincenzo trade happened essentially on the eve of training camp. But sitting here right now, the teams around Minnesota have made significant moves. Oklahoma City hasn't done anything crazy. They basically retained their guys. That's kind of what they've done, right? They've signed extensions or they have extensions out for Dort, for J-Dub. SGA signed a Supermax. Like, they're all back. They're obviously the favorite in the West. Don't forget that Denver took them to 7 games, and also so did Indiana. So while they beat the Wolves pretty easily in 5, they're not bulletproof. We definitely saw that. You look at the second tier in the Western Conference, and I'm going to go, ESPN has an article that came out on Tuesday from Zach Cram, where he tiered out the teams. And number 1, he does have the Thunder as a clear-cut favorite. Number 2, ready to deny a repeat champ is what he calls the tier. He's got, and I guess I don't know, within the tier, they appear to be in some sort of an order. Houston is listed first in the next tier. Obviously, Houston added Kevin Durant. They added Dorian Finney-Smith. They still have Amen Thompson, Tari Eason, Reed Shepherd, but they also lost some. They lost Dylan Brooks. They re-added, if you will, Clint Capella. Like, the roster's not perfect, but it does look like it's going to be better. And I want to talk a bit more about that in a second. I'm going to compare these four teams to each other, but I want to get through them first. The next one here is Denver. And Denver, I think, has had the best offseason of almost anybody by kind of retooling around Nikola Jokic without giving up Jamal Murray or Aaron Gordon. They did trade Michael Porter Jr., but getting back Cam Johnson, I think he's a better fit. I actually think he's got a higher ceiling than Michael Porter Jr. and should be more reliable than MPJ. They added Bruce Brown, or in the case of Bruce Brown, re-added Bruce Brown. They are essentially going to replace Russell Westbrook with Tim Hardaway Jr., who's certainly a more efficient offensive player. And Jonas Valanciunas, there's some drama related to will he go back to Europe? But if he doesn't, that's a pretty good bench unit. Bruce Brown, Tim Hardaway Jr., Jonas Valanciunas, and then some of the young guys that were there last year that showed some upside, but not quite yet ready to be relied upon. That's a really nice bench. And I completely buy Denver being in this location, this tier in the Western Conference, because they still have Jokic and they retooled the team around them and then around him. And then the Timberwolves are the other team in the tier. And it's just noted here that the Wolves, Anthony Edwards, will need to continue to ascend. And Cram here on ESPN is worried about the Wolves' backcourt with Nickeil Alexander-Walker gone. What he says is a streaky Dante DiVincenzo and rising sophomores Rob Dillingham and Terrence Shannon Jr. So what I want to talk about is comparing these teams to each other. Where do the Wolves fit? Like, OKC is obviously the clear favorite. I'm not going to really compare the Wolves to OKC in this show. We did a lot of Wolves OKC talk over the last few weeks. The interesting one to me is Houston and Denver. So, with Denver, I still worry a little. If you're a Denver fan, I would worry a little bit about the offensive firepower, the consistency there beyond Nikola Jokic. I don't think they necessarily solved that. Not that MPJ was a consistent offensive contributor. And in theory, Tim Hardaway can give you more consistent, efficient scoring off the bench than Russell Westbrook. But I still think there's some non-Jokic, who's going to make the shots if Jokic isn't the scorer and Jokic prefers to be the facilitator? What does that look like? There's real questions there. And I think still some depth questions. And then with Houston, I think my biggest thing is Kevin Durant still a true superstar? Obviously he's a Hall of Famer. I'm not saying is he a star? Right now, and what I mean by that is, Put it this way. Nikola Jokic, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and Anthony Edwards are all top 10 players. And you could probably argue Jokic and SGA are 1-2. And I wouldn't be mad if you flipped them either way. If you argued SGA is the best player in the league today, I don't like it. I don't love watching him play. But you can make that argument. He won MVP last year, right? His team won the title. So you can make that argument. Nikola Jokic is the other guy. Those are the two guys that are the top two in some order. Ant is in the top 10. There's no question. I would say right now Ant's probably in the 6 to 9 range in terms of best players in the league. Kevin Durant, I don't know that anybody's arguing with a straight face that he's a top 10 player at this point. Kind of a quick and dirty way to look at this, and I think player rankings are overdone, and I say that as an intro to me using player rankings. The Ringer's top 100. Flawed, yes. Do I agree with all of it? No. But as a quick snapshot, it backs up what I'm saying. Jokic and SGA are the top two. I think Ant is 6. Yeah, Ant is 6th on this list. And Kevin Durant's 14th. You could quibble they've got Anthony Davis at 13, LeBron at 12. Could you slide him up a spot or two? Yeah. Wembanyama's 11, Tatum 10, and with the Achilles, obviously he's going to fall off this list. Jalen Brunson 9, Donovan Mitchell 8, Tyrese Halliburton 7 with the Achilles. He falls off this list next year. So you could argue Durant's in the 10 to 12 range, but I don't think you'd argue he's in the top, in the top 10, in the top 9. Is he still going to be able to be the engine to drive that team? And you look at the other top 100 guys, again, a quick snapshot, look at the Ringer top 100. Houston's got 4 guys in the top 75. One's Durant, and then Şengün, Amen Thompson, and Fred VanVleet, who I think is pretty fringy. I think he's like right around 70. The Thunder deservedly have 5 guys in the top 75. SGA, J-Dub, Chet, Alex Caruso, and Isaiah Hartenstein. The Timberwolves have 4 with Ant, Randle, Gobert, and Jaden McDaniels. Naz Reid is 77, by the way. And Denver also has 4 with Jokic, Murray, Gordon, and then Cam Johnson is right at 75. By the way, do this exercise with the teams who you think might be the top 4 in the East, and you're not going to find 4 or 5 guys in the top 75. The West is just that tough. But in my opinion, the Durant not being a top 10 guy is what could be an issue for Houston. Now, in a short playoff series, it may not matter, because if Durant is Durant for, in these clutch end of game situations, then it doesn't matter. And Houston was already a really good regular season team last year. So all that to say, I think Minnesota firmly belongs in this conversation as a top 4 team in the West still. And a lot of times you'll hear on these national shows, TV, podcasts, whatever, everybody talking about OKC being challenged by Houston, and you might hear Denver, you might hear the Lakers or the Clippers, and people still aren't talking about Minnesota being a top 4 team in the West with regularity. And I think a lot of that is they've, fizzled out in 5 games each of the last 2 years in the conference finals. But guess what? They've gotten there each of the last 2 years, and they've beaten Denver to get there, and they've beaten the Lakers to get there. So like I think they firmly belong in that tier, and I think ESPN has this tiering correct. I also would still argue they're better than Houston. I don't think Durant, coming from a bad Phoenix team that didn't even make the play-in last year, I don't think Durant necessarily vaults Houston above Minnesota. And I know Houston, I get it. Houston finished the 2 seed last year. Minnesota was a 6 seed. Rockets fans, I get it. They had a better record than Minnesota, but Minnesota went further. And so I put them in the same tier, certainly. And I would argue right now I'd go OKC, Denver, Minnesota, and then Houston. And then probably the Clippers ahead of the Lakers after that. But I think it's fascinating to look at right now, and obviously stuff's going to change. I want to talk about what to watch for in the Summer League. This is part 1 and 2, the next 2 segments, and then I'll do a little bit more of this kind of topics to watch out for on tomorrow's show. So let's go ahead and get into some Summer League talk up here next. Today's episode of Locked On Wolves is brought to us by our friends at Monarch Money. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It is a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. When you start using Monarch, you'll be surprised at some of the stuff you spend more money on than you think you might be. For me, it was takeout. It was food delivery. So for some people, it's subscriptions. You just don't realize how many streaming apps you're still paying for. And even if it's only a few bucks a month, it adds up if you're subscribed to like 7 subscription services. I get it. Having everything in one app makes it so much easier to manage. And, whatever your financial goals are, it's so much easier to be serious about it if you know where everything is located, and it's all in one app with Monarch Money. Take control of your finances now with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. All right, let's talk a little bit of Las Vegas Summer League. The Wolves play at 2:30 Central tomorrow afternoon, Thursday afternoon. And I believe that game is on ESPN2. And if you missed it on Friday, I did a full Summer League primer of here's the guys to watch for. Here's the roster guys. Here's the non-roster guys. Here's the Iowa Wolves guys. Here's the undrafted guys. The short version is Minnesota has 5 roster guys: Jaylen Clark, Rob Dillingham, Leonard Miller, TJ Shannon, and Jean Beranger. Did I say it right? Beranger. There we go. Jean Beranger, the first-round pick. Those 5 guys are the roster guys. They have 3 two-way guys: Jesse Edwards, the second-round rookie, Rocco Zakarski, who did sign and will be there in Vegas, presumably. He's been practicing with the team. And then Tristan Newton, who is not officially signed for this year, but was on a 2-way last year. So that's 8 guys that have been or will be on the Wolves roster this year. A couple of undrafted guys, Watson, Fulton, a handful of Iowa Wolves guys, Bailey, Eastern, Sane, Brown, and then some other. Bailey's got some NBA experience, and so does Jamal Cain. So those guys that's the roster. Today, I want to focus mostly on actual Wolves roster guys. Tomorrow on Thursday's show, I'll talk a little bit more about what to watch for from the non-roster guys, if they depend on how much run they get. But I want to focus on Minnesota's roster guys and the elements of their game to pay attention to. It's not just like, hopefully Rob Dillingham plays good. It's like, what specific thing are we watching for with Rob Dillingham to give us the confidence, or what is Chris Finch watching to give him the confidence that Rob Dillingham can be a rotation guy for him this year? So let's start with Dilly. For Rob Dillingham, it's decision-making. Like, we know the dude can shoot. I know the shooting last season wasn't like overwhelming in, albeit limited action, of course, for Rob Dillingham. He shot under 34% from three, 44% from the field. Remember, he only played in 49 games, 10.5 minutes per game in those 49 games, one start, not a whole lot of runway. I'm not worried about the shot. It'd be great if he shoots well. That'd be awesome. We're talking about a 3, 4, 5, max, I think 6 game sample. He may shoot the lights out. That's not the thing I'm most concerned about. We know the guy can shoot. It's the overall decision-making. I mean, if you look, like, the rate-based stats can give us a picture. Again, limited run, but that's why rate-based stats can give us a sense for what he was doing last year when he was on the floor. He by far had the highest turnover rate of anybody on the Timberwolves. Like, you take out the guys who played 3 games, Daisha Nix, Tristan Newton, take out Joe Ingles, who played 19 games, take out Bones Highland. Rob Dillingham was number 1. And by that, I mean the worst in turnover rate, 19.6%. That's almost 4.5 points higher than Julius Randle. It is 6 points, almost 6 points higher than Dante DiVincenzo, the next highest guard. Almost 7 points higher than Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Mike Conley. And almost, 7.5 points higher than Anthony Edwards' turnover rate. The turnover rate's too high for Rob Dillingham. Rookie point guard, he was 20 years old. It's fine. I'm just saying, like, that's something to watch out for. Is that it's not just that, but it's not just the turnovers. It's also the shot selection, which is part of the decision making. Like, take that turnover rate that was worst on the team, but then also look at the usage rate. The only guys that had higher usage rates on the roster from Minnesota last year were Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle, the 2 best offensive players on the team. If you're not familiar with usage rate, it's just a measure of the percentage of team plays that are used by that player where they're on the floor. So it's if they shoot the ball, if the possession ends with a turnover by them, assist rate actually does play into it. So basically, how much of the action is centered around you. Well, Anthony Edwards is obviously number 1, over 31%. Take out Leonard Miller. I'm going to take out Luka Garza. Julius Randle's number 2 at 25%. And then it's Rob Dillingham at 22.7%, a higher usage rate than Reid, who's an offensive-minded 6th man of the year type guy, higher than Dante, higher than TJ Shannon, right there, past Ant, or just behind Ant and Julius Randle is Rob Dillingham. So he had the 3rd highest usage rate and the highest turnover rate, which means everything's revolving around Rob Dillingham when he's on the floor, which means the decision-making wasn't great, and if everything's going to revolve around him, it needs to be good. That's going to come with time. It's going to come with experience. It's going to come with reps. And that's what he's going to get in Summer League. What's the decision-making look like? How often is he calling his own number? And is it, we saw this play out in his limited regular season action last year with the Timberwolves, is in the open floor, Dillingham starts to penetrate, gets stuck around 16 feet, pulls it back out, and shoots kind of a fadeaway 3-pointer. Not a good possession. No passes, gets the mid-range, steps back and shoots a tough 3 as an undersized guy. Like, not a good possession. We saw that happen a lot. That can't happen in Summer League. He's got to get to the rack. He's got to penetrate and kick it out. Or he's got to just shoot the pull-up 3, which is, of those options, probably the worst one. But the decision-making is going to be paramount for Rob Dillingham. Is he making the right reads in the open floor, like the example I just gave? Is he making the right reads in the pick and roll, which I think he usually did in his limited action last year? But I think the decision-making overall on the offensive side of the ball is the most important thing for Rob Dillingham. Last year's other first-round pick, TJ Shannon, Terrence Shannon Jr., similar, actually. I want to see him with the ball in his hands in the half court. TJ Shannon's not distributing, like he's not running the offense. The offense isn't going through him. But what did I say when the Wolves drafted him a year ago out of Illinois? He's a terror in the open floor. He's a volume three-point shooter with unlimited range. He's a good defender, big NBA body, but he's not going to be able to score consistently off the dribble in the half court. Now, he did, remember the first playoff game he got into this year in rotation minutes, and he took the ball to the center of the paint and scored on like a little 10-foot kind of jump hook floater type thing. Like, if he could do that, if he could get the ball middle and score and then knock down a catch and shoot corner three, like, that's what he needs to do. I want to see him with the ball in his hands in the half court. And Summer League is the opportunity to do that. Remember Jaden McDaniels' first and I think second Summer League? Minnesota wanted him to have the ball in his hands and create for himself and maybe for others to see if he could do it. He couldn't really until the last couple of years, but it was his chance to showcase could he do it and also to kind of learn what that could look like if he got the opportunity. I don't think TJ Shannon's about to initiate the offense. I don't think that's what his role will ever be. But I'd like to see if he can score off the dribble in the half court, if he can make the right read, if he tries to take someone off the dribble, gets stuck. What's that kick out pass look like? Can he dump off a pass to somebody in the dunker? What's the consistency look like in the half court? And also, what's the consistency look like with his on-ball defense? Again, NBA body, really good defender when he applied himself in college, I think both at Texas Tech and then when he transferred to Illinois. He ran out of gas on defense because he was the guy on offense, especially at Illinois. And so he just didn't have the I'm going to say the stamina to apply himself defensively. But we saw flashes of it last year. And again, NBA body, athleticism, length, the size. I think he can do it. I think he'd be a good defender. And Summer League's kind of hit and miss with that, right? Like you may just have a track meet where you don't get the chance to really, strap in and defend in the half court. But we also saw like Jaylen Clark have a 6-steal game or whatever it was last year in Summer League. So I'd like to see TJ Shannon with some consistent top flight on ball defense in Summer League. Two more. I got two more for you here today on what to watch in Vegas Summer League. We'll do that here next to close out the show. All right, two more things to watch in Las Vegas Summer League. Part 1. Jaylen Clark. I know I said earlier, Rob Dillingham, I didn't really care if he shot the ball well or not because we know he's a good shooter. I do care a little bit how Jaylen Clark shoots the ball. Again, it's a small sample, so take any of these stats from Summer League, especially the shooting percentages, with so many grains of salt because it's a tiny sample. However, with Jaylen Clark, I think there's a lot of intrigue to what this thing could look like. Jaylen Clark last year shot 43% from three-point range. Limited opportunity, 40 games, 522 minutes. I was actually surprised that he played in 9 less games than Dillingham and only played 6 more minutes than Rob Dillingham. I felt like Clark was in the rotation more toward the end of the year than that. But that's just a reminder of how small the sample is with this three-point shot. He was 22 of 51. That's still a minuscule sample, especially for a guy who in college at UCLA never shot better than 32.9% from three. Overall for his college career across 3 seasons, and we're talking 90 games, he was 30% from three, 30.2%. I'm not convinced, I don't think the Wolves are either, that the shooting, the 43% three-point shooting, that's not for real. But what does the shot look like in Summer League? Does he look comfortable? Is he confident? I'm very curious to see what that looks like. And again, it's a little bit like spring training batting averages in baseball. Like you look at it and you can tell yourself a story like, I don't care, it doesn't matter. Or if it goes really well, then it's like, oh, well, this is positive. He hit 400 in spring or whatever. Or he shot 50% from three in Summer League. You can spin it however you want, but I do think there's something to, if this continues for Jaylen Clark, does this look real? And if the comfort level is there and he's still smooth and confident with the catch and shoot opportunities, like that to me would be a really encouraging sign. The last thing I got for you today related to what to watch for in Vegas Summer League is Leonard Miller. Again, continuing the theme of current Timberwolves roster guys. Leonard Miller, this is kind of make or break for him. This is year 3. He's got to prove that he can have some role at the NBA level. He is right now the 4th string big man on the Wolves roster. I like don't look now, but that's true. With no Luka Garza, after Randle and Rudy and Reid. It's Leonard Miller, or it's Joe Ingles at the 4. Like, I don't know. What do you want? It's Leonard Miller. That's what it is. That's who it is. He has to be able to show something if Minnesota is going to continue forward with the Leonard Miller. It's not really an experiment at this point, but the Leonard Miller experience, we'll call it that. Still so raw, still so talented, still a lot of success in the G League. But for me, I want to see the rebounding from Leonard Miller. I want to see him at his size. He's undersized to be a front court guy in the NBA, but has the length and athleticism and has shown to have a nose for the ball. We need to see consistent rebounding, aggressiveness on the glass, really on both ends of the floor. But I really want to see the defensive rebounding from Leonard Miller and also the defensive intensity. That's the biggest question mark. Decision-making in offense, yes, he's really a point forward is what he is a big point forward with a good handle and a good enough shot and really athletic, long, etc. The decision-making is one thing that's holding him back. The other thing is the consistency on defense. The lack of defensive intensity at times where he's just like, just kind of shows up, trots down the court to play defense. There needs to be some level of urgency for him on the defensive end of the floor. We know that he can block shots, like the steal rate's been there, but can he show it with some consistency with extended run, right? Like he's going to get to play a bunch in Summer League. He may end up playing, like I may make some predictions tomorrow. I might predict that he plays the most minutes of anybody in the Summer League because he's the guy with the most questions. Can he be a rotation guy? Should we continue to invest in Leonard Miller? He's in a similar spot to where Josh Minott was last year. The difference was Minott had actually been given some rotation minutes the year before, and Miller has had 0 rotation minutes. Even when Minnesota was down bigs, they would not trust him to give him rotation minutes. And now Garza's gone. That safety blanket is gone. Safety blanket? Comfort blanket? Safety belt? I don't know, whatever. He's gone. And they likely will add another big. We've talked about that. But Leonard Miller has to make the case for himself as a rotation guy. And I think the number one thing they're looking for is defensive consistency and competitiveness on the glass. Is he going to play hard? Is he going to find the ball off the rim, off the glass, and contribute in that way? Tomorrow, Thursday show, of course, the Wolves play Thursday afternoon. So we'll talk a couple other things to look for, and I'll make some Summer League predictions. Why not? It's fun. It's July. It's Vegas. Predict, what we could look out for. We're going to work on getting Andrew Dukowitz of Zone Coverage in the Daily Wolves podcast on the show at some point here in the next couple of days to talk Vegas. He will be on site there, so hopefully we'll talk to him. It may be after the game Thursday for Friday's show, or we may wait till Monday to talk to Andrew, so we get a couple games under his belt there in Vegas. So stay tuned to that. Of course, we will be daily still next week, the week after, and the week after that throughout the month of July. All your offseason Wolves coverage is right here. It's a one-stop shop for you. Make sure to subscribe to the show wherever you like to listen to podcasts. You can also watch on YouTube and also on the Locked On Sports Minnesota app on both Roku and Amazon Fire TV. A reminder that for your second listen, you can find the Locked On NBA podcast where there is no offseason. Doug, Matt, and Hayes keep you up to date on contract negotiations, rumors, and everything you need to know to be the most informed NBA fan. Find Locked On NBA on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Of course, the Locked On Wolves podcast is also part of that same Locked On Podcast Network. Remember, the Locked On Network is your local experts on all the biggest stories. Once again, I'm Ben Beecken. This is the Locked On Wolves podcast. We'll catch you next time.